What's up guys, and welcome back to another Pokemon Sun and Moon video, and in this video we are going to be going over all of the new abilities that have been introduced in Generation 7, talking them over, talking about how good they are, and obviously mentioning what Pokemon can get them, and yeah, just generally talking about abilities, because I find it's one of the most interesting parts in terms of competitive, the new abilities that come in that could be useful if they're on the right Pokemon, or could be terrible if they're on the wrong Pokemon, sort of thing. So we're just gonna, sort of go for and have a look. So the first up, I'm just gonna go straight down the list, not even ordering in alphabetically. First up we have Stamina, which of course is what Mudsdale gets, and that boosts defense when hit by an attack. And actually a great ability for Mudsdale to get, because of course it's got a pretty good defense anyway. So all you need to do is force the enemy to hit you with physical attacks and you're pretty much set then. Unfortunately in competitive it could be useful, of course it will be the best ability for Mudsdale to possibly use, but I don't really think it will make a huge effect on the battle, because they're just not going to hit you with a physical attack. Yes, it might restrict them a bit if they've got a physical attacker on the field, they won't, they have to switch out, but generally it's not going to be a huge changing factor. It's more of a, if the opponent is stupid enough to actually attack you, you get a benefit. So you're sort of relying on the opponent screwing up rather than you yourself outplaying them. Next up we have Wimp Out, and I'm going to combine this with Emergency Exit since they are basically the exact same ability. Wimp Out's description says the Pokemon cowardly switches out when its health points becomes half or less, and Emergency Exit says the Pokemon sensing danger switches out when its health points becomes half or less. So basically the same thing. For Wimpod it's going to be very annoying to catch it, or not hugely annoying, but more difficult to catch it because it will run away, especially if you're hunting a shiny Wimpod. But in terms of Golisopod, who is Wimpod's evolution, having Emergency Exit, initially I saw this and I was like, wow, that's terrible, I don't like it. But in terms of the moves that Golisopod gets, it's actually pretty good. Because Golisopod actually has a new move which is related to, basically sort of related or similar to Fake Out, but it doesn't flinch the opponent, but it can only be used the first turn you go in, basically. So it's very similar to, to Fake Out, except the opponent doesn't flinch, but it's higher damage. And of course, if you switch out at half health points, you can come in later on and get another hit off of this move, which is pretty good. So in terms of competitive, Emergency Exit might be pretty good for sort of outplaying your opponent, by you being able to switch in, use this move, and then your opponent gets you down to half health points, and then you switch out again. And you also get access to Leech Life, of course, with Golisopod, which means say you switch out, you come back in, you use your Fake Out move, whatever it's called, I can't remember off the top of my head, and then you can use Leech Life to get you above half health points again and get switched out when the opponent attacks you next. So especially if you make this thing a defensive monster, it could work out quite well. Of course, we'll see how things develop over time. Next up though we have Water Compaction, which is the ability that Sandygast and Power Sand get. Now Water Compaction, as we know, boosts the defense that sharply when hit by a water type move. And this is actually pretty good. Pretty good-ish. Yes, okay, it's great, you get a nice big boost, but is Sandygast or Palossand really going to survive more than one water type hit? Yes, okay, you take a water hit, you're weak to it, which means you go down to half health. Yes, okay, your defense has just been boosted by 2, but that means that they can just use another attack to take the rest of the way down. It's only really an extra turn or 2 in battle, so in this overall scheme of things, it's not a hugely great ability, but it could be useful in some situations, especially if you can build Palossand tanky. Next up we have Merciless, and I love this ability. This is the ability that basically the Sea Cactus Pokemon have, and I just love it. Only they get it currently, but basically if the enemy is poisoned, then your attacks become critical hits. That's amazing, because you can just Toxic straight off the bat, and Toxic is going to slowly wear them down turn by turn anyway, and if you can get an attack or 2 off, it's a crit, especially if they have, if they've hardened up and stuff like that, barrier and such. It's just going to ignore that completely, because that's what crits do. So I feel like that could be really cool, especially, with Toxapex is the evolution I'm thinking of. It could be really good if you build it defensively. You can Toxic and then you can slowly hit them with abilities, but obviously they'll be critical moves rather, but obviously they'll be critical hits, so it should be working out pretty well. Moving further on though, we have Shield Down, which is Minior's signature ability. Now Minior will not be used competitively, so we don't have to really talk about this in a competitive sort of area, but when its health points becomes half or less, the shell breaks and it becomes aggressive. So basically it switches from having defensive stats to offensive stats and a very high speed. So I feel like this could be pretty good. Say you spend the turn or 2 you're in your shields up mode, maybe it gets something like iron defense. I think it's iron defense. Increasing your defense so that when you do switch over, you do have still decent defense. You do that, and then obviously your shields drop, and boom, you have high attack, special attack, and speed, which means you can hit pretty hard. And of course, if you've iron defensed up or a similar move, you could be pretty unstoppable then. So Minion might see some use in terms of lower tiers, but obviously OU not going to happen. Moving next on, we have Stakeout, which is the ability that, of course, Yungoos and Gumshoos get. I believe they're the only ones that get it. Stakeout, Yungoos, and then Gumshoos, yes. Stakeout, it basically, if the target switches out, you do double damage. So it could be very useful in a competitive situation, because people do like to switch out in competitive, and they always have to think about, if the enemy's got a Gumshoos out, if you switch out, then you're going to take double damage if they predict that switch. So it's sort of more mind games, which is always fun to bring in, so I feel like that's going to be pretty cool. But we'll move on next to Water Bubble, which is the one that Dupida gets. It's quite an interesting one, because that's the sound of not finding anything. Water Bubble. Yes, Dupida and its evolution Araquanid get it, and what that does is it lowers the power of fire type moves and prevents you from getting burnt. It could be good, but looking at Araquanid, its high stat is special defense, and it doesn't really have an amazing physical attack. If anything, its physical attack is higher than its special, so you could say, okay, it could be a physical attacker that can't get burnt, that'd be pretty good. But overall, what this does is it just keeps your resistance to fire type attacks, even though you're part bug type, so it just gives it another resistance basically. It's a good ability, but it's nothing amazing to shout about, so it's really just a standard ability that you'll have to deal with when you face a Dupida or an Araquanid. Next up though, we have Steelworker, which I believe is an ability that only the new Anchor Pokemon gets, and that's called Delmis. It's a Ghost Grass type, but Steelworker powers up Steel type moves. So basically you can get Stab on Ghost, Grass and Steel type moves, and obviously depending on its move pool, it could be pretty good. Looking at very quickly, it does get Heavy Slam, which is a Steel type move, as well as Flash Cannon, so in terms of that, it could be pretty good to work there. So I'm excited to see how that works out, because it's nothing that really benefits you, but it gives you a stab without giving you the typing, I suppose. Next up we have Berserk, which I believe is Drampa's ability, so yep, just Drampa gets this, just Drampa with Berserk, and what Berserk does, as we know already, is it boosts the Pokemon's special attack stat when it takes a hit that causes its health points to become half or less. So basically, once you drop to half health points, you get a special attack boost when it takes a hit, so maybe Poison won't necessarily activate that. But in terms of Drampa's move pool, its special attack is 135, which is really quite high. However, its speed is only 36, which sort of leaves it for, okay, you drop half health points, cool, you get special attack boost, but if you're not fast enough to actually get an attack off, it doesn't matter. So it might end up sort of seeing how that goes, but in terms of maybe it has some method to restore health points, because if you drop over half, restore health points, you get basically another special attack boost. And taking a quick look at it, I can't really see anything huge in terms of egg moves or anything like that to restore health points, so maybe I might have to rely on teammates to do that in a double battle situation. But of course in singles, you're not going to be able to do that without using like Wish, for example, and of course then you only generally can get one unless you switch in, drop half health points, get your boost, and then Wish to restore on that turn. So maybe Citrus Berry might be quite useful for it as well, so it drops half health points, gets a boost, and then Citrus Berry brings it back up again. We'll have to see. Next up though is Slush Rush, which is the ability, or the hidden ability, for Alolan Sandshrew and Alolan Sand Slash, but it's also gotten by Cubchoo and Beartic as hidden abilities. So in terms of those two, Slush Rush increases speed during a hailstorm. It could be useful for Beartic maybe, but for Sand Slash it has 65 speed, so I mean, hailstorm isn't generally a hugely used topic, but if you have a snow warning Pokemon on your team, it could be useful in some ways, but generally I don't see it having huge effects, but we'll see. Next though is Long Reach, which is the hidden ability of the Rowlet line, which allows it to use moves without making contact with the target. Is it good? Yeah, I suppose it is. It allows you to avoid stuff like Rocky Helmet and Iron Barbs, so in certain situations it might be pretty good, but generally it's sort of a, it's a situational thing. So sometimes it'll be good, and then most of the time it'll be sort of like, okay. Then there we have Liquid Voice, which is an ability for Popplio and its evolution line. So having a look at what, because obviously if you know, Liquid Voice turns all sound type moves into water type moves, which could be pretty good. Looking at Primarina, in terms of sound type moves, soundish moves it gets, we have Disarming Voice, which is a very bad move, so a very low powered move, so it probably won't be hugely available. But Sing, I guess that's not going to be offensive obviously. Hyper Voice though is a fairy type move, which will then turn into a water type move, so it could really, and I believe it doesn't say they get boosted though, so maybe it just doesn't boost them, it just makes them immortal type moves, so who knows exactly. But apart from that, in terms of TMs, maybe it gets something there. Just having a look. Sleep Talk, maybe Sleep Talk is a sound-based move, so I suppose, well, Sleep Talk is just a general thing, isn't it? I'm thinking of Snore, my bad. But yeah, it looks like the only sound type move, or sound-based move they get is Hyper Voice, and of course that's then losing the fairy typing for it, which you also get Stab on, so whether it will be amazingly useful or not, I'm not too sure. We'll see if it gets anything later down the line. Then we have Triage, which gives priority to healing moves, and this is obviously an ability that we know Comfy gets, but I'll just check if any other Pokemon get it. No, just Comfy. It could be good because it's got a high special defense stat and a fairly high speed stat, and of course, as we know, it gives priority to a healing move, so if you're using a double battle situation, it could be pretty good, but generally, single battles, probably not, since Comfy's not going to be getting a huge amount of use. Next is Galvanize, which is an amazing ability because it is the hidden ability of the Alolan Geodude line. So Alolan Geodude, Alolan Graveler, and Alolan Golem get it, and Galvanize turns normal type moves into electric type moves, which is going to be awesome, especially for Golem, which gets some pretty good normal type moves. It has Double Edge, it's pretty cool. The Explosion, so if a last ditch situation, self-destruct obviously very similar to Explosion, but looking at TMs as well, I'm sure it also gets, what I'm trying to think of here, Focus Blast is a fighting type move, that's not what I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of the physical, Giga Impact, that's the one. So it'll be really interesting to see how that gets used and whether Golem actually becomes, or Alolan Golem becomes fairly viable in terms of usage competitively. We shall see though. Next up is Surge Surfer, which of course is down to Alolan Raichu, doubles it on electric terrain. I feel like that would be decent in double battles if you can get Tapu Koko there or another Pokemon to set up electric terrain. Of course, I'm sure Raichu could possibly do it itself. But generally, in terms of ability, it's pretty good. Doubles Raichu's speed. It's already pretty good in its Alolan form as well, so it'll be really fast on electric terrain, so I quite like that ability. Next is Schooling, which of course is Wishy-Washy's signature ability. When it has a lot of health points, the Pokemon forms a powerful school. It stops schooling when its health points is low. So basically, just getting extra stats when it's got high health points. I suppose it's decent, especially if you keep it at high health points in terms of moves, maybe. Looking quickly at Wishy-Washy in terms of what moves it gets. Maybe it has something to restore health points exactly, I don't know. Apart from rest, maybe when you get down to little Wishy-Washy, you can rest up to get to huge Wishy-Washy. I don't know quite how the ability works, whether it works both ways, whether you can go back into high health points or not. Who knows exactly? I guess you would, but we'll see when the time comes. Next is Disguise, which of course is Mimikyu's ability. Once per battle, the shroud that covers the Pokemon can protect from an attack, so basically it's a free focus sash, so I suppose it could be decent. I don't think Mimikyu's going to get a huge amount of use though, since it is sort of like a middle tier Pokemon. So Disguise, while being a decent ability, it probably won't be amazingly impactful. Battle Bond, though, is the next one for obviously Ash Greninja. Water Shuriken also gets more powerful, so Ash Greninja could see some decent use if I quickly search for Greninja. In terms of Ash Greninja's, states, I suppose you could say, when it powers up, the physical attack goes up to 145, which is really quite high. Special attack goes to 153 and 132 in speed, an extra 10 in speed, which is really quite good, especially with Water Shuriken now being a physical move. 145, and he gets powered up to. I could see Ash Greninja being maybe at least used in some higher tiers. We shall see though, if it's of course allowed. Of course you have to defeat a Pokemon, so maybe you keep it in the back, you send it out, it's pretty fast, so you could use it in that sort of area. Next though is Power Construct, which is for obviously a Zygarde, so it's a legendary, it's nothing too much to look at. When its health points become half or less, Pokemon changes to its form to complete form. Half is basically a reverse Wishy-Washy, so whether or not that's better, I don't know. Next though is Corrosion, which means they can poison any Pokemon basically, so if it's Salandit and Salazzle, I don't think any other Pokemon get it currently. Yep, just looks like Salandit and Salazzle, but that's fine, it's their own thing, so maybe Salazzle will see some decent use because of that ability. Comatose then is for Komala. Komala could see some use competitively because it has sort of like fairly high stats, but generally I don't think it will. Queenie Majesty is next, which might be useful because, of course, having a look at Serena, it has reasonably good stats, a fairly high physical attack stat as well, and Queenie Majesty preventing priority moves could be pretty useful in a competitive environment. Then we have Innards Out, which damages the attacker, landing the finishing hit by the amount equal to its last health points. Pyukumuku will probably not see used competitively. It might be used on some of those like little fun teams where you have a Pyukumuku sitting back, wait for them to like prepare to use like Draco Meteor and then send Pyukumuku out and then they kill themselves as well. So that could be a way to do it, but probably not. Dancer is next with Oricorio. Again, Oricorio unlikely to see usage in competitive, but it's a pretty good ability itself. You know, if a Pokemon ends up using a dance move, you get to do it too. So it'll be used in some situations, but not in all. Then we have Battery, which is for Charge Bug. Powers up ally Pokemon's special moves. Only Charge Bug gets it, so probably not going to see any use at all, since not really much use to use a Charge Bug. Fluffy is next, which halves the damage taken from moves that make direct contact, but doubles that of fire type moves. This is the new ability for, I think, Beware. Okay, yes, you take half damage, but doubles it for fire types. Basically makes you really weak to fire type moves. It gives you another weakness, but it makes you, resistant against more contact moves, which could be useful, especially since Beware has a decent defense stat. But again, it's very similar to Stamina in the case of they just won't attack you with a physical move unless, of course, they have a fire type move, in which case they'll just kill you. Then we have Dazzling, which surprises the opposing Pokemon, making it unable to attack using priority moves. Again, same ability as Serena basically, but Zarina I think is supposed to be pronounced, but of course it's only on Bruxish, which isn't that good really, because it's not really got much purpose, I suppose you could say. Dazzling, of course, Dazzling Gleam is what I'm going to get here. Okay, but yeah, whatever, I think it's only on Bruxish, so that's that. Soul Heart is next, that's for Magearna, boosts the special attack every time a Pokemon faints. Okay, I guess that's good to have you to ramp up over a battle, but it's it's obviously for Magearna too, so that's that. Tangling Hair is the ability for Alolan Diglett and Alolan Dugtrio. Contact with it lowers the attacker's speed stat, so I guess it could be good, but looking at their stats, it doesn't have very high stats at all, so I doubt it's going to be able to take more than 1 or 2 hits, so you're not going to be able to slow the opponent down greatly, but maybe you can slow them down once and then get an attack in, who knows. Receiver is next, which means the Pokemon copies the ability of a defeated ally, same with Power of Alchemy. Receiver is gotten by Psimium, we know, and Power of Alchemy is gotten by, is used by Alolan Grimer and Alolan Muck, because Alchemy. Yep, Alolan Grimer and Alolan Muck. Whether that's good or not for those, is sort of debatable. I think generally, it's a defeated ally, so it has to be used in a double battle rather than single, so generally not really that useful there. But then it's Beast Boost, which is for all the legendaries, i.e. the Ultra Beasts, which boost the most proficient stat each time it knocks out a Pokemon. Very useful for Pokemon in general, getting a boost in your highest stat, because if it's speed, it means you get faster and faster. If it's special attack, it means you get more powerful. If it's defense, yes, okay, you're not knocking out Pokemon too much, but it makes you even more threatening and sort of bulky. But in terms of legendaries, yes, they might be useful in Ubers, but OU, they're not going to be in there, so I think it's unlikely to make much of an impact. Next up is RIKS system, which is for Silvally. Changes the Pokemon's type to match the memory disk it holds. Whether Silvally will be good or not, I don't know. I think Type Null is going to get more use than that, because of course the Eviolite boosts its already pretty good stats to higher than what Silvally has, and Silvally basically has to hold one of the energy cards or whatever they're called for the RIKS system to affect it, which removes abilities for Life Orb and Choice Band and such. So I don't think Silvally is going to see too much use, maybe here and there, but I think Type Null with Eviolite is going to see more. Then we have the new abilities for Tapu's Electric Surge, Psychic Surge, Misty Surge and Grassy Surge. Whether or not these legendaries end up in OU, I think they might, because they're not exactly Ubers, they're not like Sorgalone and Alola, but they're not exactly normal Pokemon. And the ability is pretty good as well. Could certainly help you if you have a Pokemon in the back, Grassy Surge, so you have a Pokemon with, is it Grass Coat? I can't remember the name. To activate that. Misty Surge obviously helps heal, so that could be useful for that. Psychic Surge helps for Psychic types, so maybe if you're running a team like that. And obviously Electric Surge is pretty good for Alolan Raichu, so maybe that would be a team up there. Who knows there? 3 final abilities rather. First of these, or the first 2 is Full Metal Body and Shadow Shield, the abilities for Solgaleo and Lunala. Yes, okay, it's nothing too special, we've seen them before. Both abilities are sort of copies of other ones we've seen in the past, and obviously that's that. And then finally we have Prism Armor, which is the ability for Necrozma, the last Ultra Beast, so it's not got Beast Boost, it's got Prism Armor, which reduces the power of super effective attacks taken, so it makes it more resistant to everything basically, apart from normal neutral moves. So maybe it's good, maybe it's not, who knows exactly. It's again a legendary, so it's not going to have a huge amount of impact. But those are all the new abilities in Pokemon Sun and Moon in Generation 7 for the moment, of course. So let me know what you think about that down below. What abilities sort of jump out at you as really going to impact the competitive scene, or really you'd like to actually use in-game to give you an edge over the AI opponents, but to help you sweep through teams really fast. Let me know down below what you think about it all, and like the video if you enjoyed it. But for now, this is going to be it for today, so I should be saying next time, thank you for watching, goodbye my friends.